Okay, greetings and salutations to everybody out there. Thank you for joining us once again. My name is JV Wins. That, of course, is Dogon S. As we are back for another edition to the Constant Approach channel on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you are so inclined and have not already done so. Go ahead and hit that like button. Let us know rather what you think about the commentary in these videos. We certainly appreciate it as we continue to pump out this logical content each and every week. We certainly appreciate everybody who's joined us along for the ride, and join the tribe. We certainly thank you for the support as we continue in our race to 1,000 subscribers. Slowly but surely, we are getting there. Uh, so, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get things kicked off this week. The first thing that we are going to talk about is interesting comments made by rap veteran Jeezy. Jeezy is currently promoting a new book. So Jeezy is now author. He can add author to his lengthy list of career credentials. And he is promoting his book. And one of the stops that he has gone on recently on his book promotional tour is a stop at Nick Cannon's Daily Cannon podcast. And one of the interesting things that we picked up from this podcast is Jeezy talking about how, when word got out that he was someone who was a part of the ownership group of a upscale steakhouse in Atlanta, Georgia, that things kind of took a turn for the worse. Now, eventually, the restaurant ended up closing, but Jeezy, during this appearance on Nick Cannon's podcast, lamented on how once it became public knowledge that it was Jeezy who was involved with this restaurant, the clientele and the overall quality of the clientele of the restaurant started to decline. I think we can surmise from his comments, but don't let me speak for Jeezy. I will allow Jeezy to speak for himself. So again, all relevant links that we mention on this stream will, of course, appear in the description of this video, so you can check those out when you get a chance. But this was a piece of media or content rather that was picked up across multiple publications. I happened to catch wind of it here on Afrotech. And so this says Jeezy explains how things went left after word got out that he owned one of the nicest steakhouses in Atlanta. Sometimes things may be better left unsaid. While promoting his book, Adversity for Sale, You Gotta Believe, in an interview on the Daily Cannon Morning Show, Jeezy recalled the aftermath of going public about one of his previous ventures that he once kept private. The rapper and businessman used to own a high-end steakhouse, American Cut, in Atlanta, Georgia. So the article goes on to quote the conversation between Jeezy and Nick Cannon, but I'll just go ahead and play this video snippet, and we'll allow Jeezy to speak on it himself. And then, of course, we will give our thoughts on what he had to say after the clip has ended.
Yeah.
Snowman. Then everybody's now calling you for the hookup,
Right?
And you can't operate a business on a hookup.
Not even that. Not even
Toys
that.
R Us hookup.
I had a high-end steakhouse in Atlanta in the shops of Buckhead. It's, called American Cut, and probably one of the nicest steakhouses there. 3 stories, beautiful. And it was like my best kept secret. I remember Nas was on tour. He stopped by. He was like, "Yo, you own this?" I'm like, "Yeah." He was like, "It's crazy." So we sitting there, but it's all classy.
Right.
Man, the minute I went on radio one day and it was like, "Yeah, you know, I own this American Cut," I went back there. You would have thought it was Freaknik.
They was in there.
The whole thing. It started going down. You going in there to eat, you see a cat you used to hustle with. I'm like, oh my God.
Hey, Jesus said I could be up there.
Right.
Goddamn, bring one of them goddamn steaks.
You know, they're upstairs, they try to smoke weed. I'm like, oh man, you can't. Like, what we doing?
That is hilarious.
Yeah, you know why it costs? Man, you ordered the Wagyu, baby. What we gonna do?
They Instagram it, Jeezy, why this steak cost so goddamn much?
All the things well done.
But I mean, again, it's elevation, man.
Yeah,
and even when it comes to business. So, Oh man, that's crazy.
All right, yeah. So unfortunately for Jeezy, once word got out that he was a part of that, it took a turn for the worse. For context purposes, American Cut in Atlanta was located in Buckhead, and it was in business for 5 years before closing on February 28th, 2022. So it has been closed for approaching a year and a half at this point, and it was around for 5 years. And he attributes the closing at least to the clientele of the restaurant kind of taking a different turn once it became public that he owned it. So I thought that this was pretty interesting stuff here. We, of course, on this channel champion black-owned businesses, and
Absolutely.
this would qualify as such. And so, a bit disappointing to learn that it's a bit disappointing to hear Jeezy speak on it in that manner. But what did you think about those comments?
Uh, it's unfortunate that he had to keep it hidden in the first place. Because the way I kind of took it all, at least my first ear, I can be a little ignorant at times. But my first ear, when I first heard this, I was like, once I told those Negroes where my establishment was, they came in there and started just messing up the place, driving down the value of my luxurious property. And, I'm like, damn, Jeezy, for the snowman, the man of the streets, the voice of the people, the voice of the streets, for this guy to sit here and turn his back on the streets and feels like he should have kept it hidden from the streets it's not really street to me. So that was my first thought. But then, cooler heads prevailed. And you damn right I wouldn't tell those people where the hell my establishment was. And the reason being is, well, it drove it down. He was doing something else there. Now, if he wanted a wing spot, they could have ran that up, like a little wing stop or whatever, But a high end, high scale type of thing. Hey man, that's a certain type of clientele, and not just it's now mind you, this is Atlanta, so it's not like white people. There's white people there, but it's high end black people too, and they don't want to be around the foolishness either.
Mm-hmm.
So you're chasing away a certain class of income when you start bringing all of this shenanigans around, with the loud cars in the parking lot and the TikTok videos. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it got a little messy in there. But hey man, this is just what it is, dude. I really can't slice this any other way. I don't know. I'm not either up or down on this. I just think that this is just what it is. But for Jeezy, I think the only stance that I do have is that, I know he said it kind of tongue in cheek or whatever, but if I was like a certified street dude and I always held Jeezy up to a certain esteem, for always vouching for me and speaking for me, I feel like this is a little backstabby, I don't think he I don't know. I would have came at this another way. But how about you, bro? How do you feel about this entire situation, man? Do you agree with Sir Jeezy here? Do you think that maybe, just maybe, the streets lowered the value of his high-end restaurant?
I think Jeezy has low-key tried to shed that moniker of himself.
Streets, man.
Yeah, I think so. Quietly, though, because if he does it loudly, he'll be perceived as turning his back on too many people. So I think that over the years he has quietly tried to do that. And I'm not necessarily criticizing him for it. I'm just kind of basing that off of my observation. If you look at who he ended up getting married to and various other things that he tried to venture into with his career, the fact that he has long since stopped being particularly active with his music, I think he has purposefully tried to, sort of sidestep his way out of being synonymous with the streets the way it was when he was Snowman 17.5. When I first like when this article, when this news or this content first came across my way, when I read the headline, my first reaction was, I'm about to click on this and read about how white America decided to not support his business once they discovered that it was owned by him. That's what I thought that I was going to read. But then I get into there and I read the clip. I read the article and I watch the clip, and he's saying no. Once he said that is actually the opposite. He was saying once it went public that he was involved, then his constituency started coming out, and that's what ended up driving the place into the ground. And you have to be very tricky with this kind of stuff when you are trying to appeal to a more widespread customer base. I'll say that, because this is a hole that Jeezy kind of dug for himself.
Yeah.
Not that it's his own fault, but it is what it is. Like TM 101, 102, 103, he was the streets.
Yeah.
I low key credit him as somewhat the inventor of trap rap, or just the sound of trap rap in and of itself. And there's other rappers who have tried to lay claim to that, like T.I. T.I. claims that he's the originator of it. I don't recall hearing a sound like Jeezy sound before Jeezy did it. I don't recall that. But I've heard sounds similar to T.I. sound before T.I. came onto the scene like that. I think Jeezy.
No, I was gonna say, like, and just this real quick, because the whole T.I. thing is, because he was talking about trapping, but as you mentioned, Jeezy was doing it different. It was literally every bar was about cocaine and how it's getting flipped, and people weren't doing it like that.
Right.
So, but go on.
Not on that level. And when you match the sound with the way he was doing it, every song, every bar, I don't think that anything was going on like that before Jeezy. I just don't. I don't recall that. With the beats and everything, it was different when he to me, he originated it. So at that point, you're so deeply entrenched in it from an identity standpoint, and you've done it. You basically did it for over a decade before you decided to kind of step away from the music industry and focus on other things. This type of stuff is going to come along with the territory. And it's one of the difficulties that, Black and brown people have with some of these niche avenues with which they choose to come up in, music and entertainment, even sports and athletics, is once you've identified with that so heavily and you decide to do different things, people don't want to allow you the opportunity to expand and grow, unfortunately. And we tend in our community to somewhat have a crab in a bucket, lack of appreciation approach to certain things. And instead of trying to support Jeezy in such a way that his restaurant can continue to appeal to everybody despite what his beginnings are, you get this typical result, which is his audience basically driving the value of the organization down. And I would not have faulted him if he had opted to continue to keep it a secret, just for strategic purposes, kind of being able to project that something like that would happen had he not done so. And this is something that's unique unto an individual such as Jeezy, because there's other Black-owned restaurants of notoriety in Atlanta that didn't suffer the same fate. And even ones that did close down lasted for far longer. Like I said at the opening of the video, Jeezy, this restaurant lasted for 5 years, but Puff's Justin's restaurant in the same city, Atlanta, lasted for 14 years, I think, before it eventually closed up. So you get a 14-year run out of that. That to me speaks to the value and the clientele of the establishment, allowing the place to, prosper for as long as it did. before, 14 years, inevitably they ended up calling it quits. And this American cut in Buckhead didn't get nearly as long a leash. And that's specifically intrinsically tied to Jeezy's constituency, in my opinion. So, it just kind of speaks to how delicately you have to move when you decide to be, when you are someone who is in Jeezy's position and you decide to venture outward and do things differently. And for the record, I'm vaguely familiar with Buckhead. I don't have, I've been there a few times. I spent an entire Christmas in Buckhead. Like you said, established Black people live in Buckhead. It's not one of these, like, you don't think, most affluent neighborhoods in America you think of as majority white in terms of, the people who reside there, or at the very least, majority non-Black. But Buckhead is not really like that. It's kind of a mixed bag. There's prominent Black people with money who live there, as well as prominent non-Black people with money who live there as well. So it ain't like the streets is all up and through Buckhead. It's a well-established, historically long-standing, affluent part of Atlanta. And so for this neighborhood, for this restaurant to have been located there and to have been driven down as a result of the public knowledge that Jeezy is aware, speaks to the impact that Jeezy had on his listenership, and the lengths that listenership was willing to go to in order to, in their minds, patronize what Jeezy was doing. But clearly, that patronization resulted in the opposite of the business being able to prosper into the future. And it's unfortunate, but I just think it's a cautionary tale of what you should do if you are someone who is in Jeezy's position and you decide that you want to venture out. You got to be more strategic, because when you get to a point where you're that big, those individuals can no longer speak for you, or else, have your business be sacrificed at the altar of the streets. And that's what happened to Jeezy.
Mm-hmm. And now that I think about what he said, now I'm not putting words in his mouth, all right, but one could assume he's blaming his constituents for driving down the value of his establishment.
That's what it sounds like.
That's what it That's what it sounds like from what we're hearing.
Right.
All right. Now that's we just established that. Now that we've established that, my thing is, now that I think about what he said, he's blaming that he shouldn't have said anything because his constituents would show up. This is why this don't go for me.
Right.
He's blaming them, but what he said was that it's like Freaknik in there on a radio show. Now, it's a difference now. If he just came out and say, "Oh yeah, by the way, that American cut that's around here 5-starring it up. Oh yeah, I got a little piece of that." People would have been like, "Oh snap! All right, Jeezy, you doing it 5-star? I'm coming to a little classy." But he said it's like Freaknik in the kitchen, and I don't want no BBL clapping ass around my medium rare sirloin. So I'm not going to your establishment if that's the kind of crowd that's going to be there. So it's not so much that he told his people, it's how he told his people. And because I'm sure people that are in his constituency would actually sit there and behave themselves if they felt like this is what I should do in here. But the way that he made it seem like it's the streets in here, but it's 5 stars, upscale street. So let me come in there with my linen suit. And so it's like, nah, man. And y'all driving down the value. So I don't so much, and this is why I don't jive for me, is because it's like he's low key, if we take it there, that he's blaming the people more than blaming himself for how he presented it. And I can understand him trying to keep it under wraps because there's certain endeavors for branding's sake. You want a brand that's outside of your typecasting. So in order for it to have that mystique that you want, you don't want nobody to know who's behind it. So I totally get that. But at the same time, if you already knew this was an upscale place, why the hell would you make that statement about your kitchen? So I say Jeezy was in the wrong for how he presented this. And so, no, you could have told your people. You shouldn't have told them like that and not in those words. And it's another thing that like right before you got to it, Nick Cannon was talking about something. Oh yeah, people always want a deal. Everybody in our community want a deal. Blah blah blah. If you run in the business, you can't cut a deal. Everybody in every other community cut their people deals. We're the only people that's not trying to cut people deals. You tax everybody else. They tax my ass, that's for damn sure. But they cut their homeboys a deal whenever they're putting in a new AC unit. So why can't we do that for our people? See, there's a difference. The person that's installing the AC unit does a good job, so he can actually charge your ass. And then he's making so much money because he's always overcharging other communities. He can give his people a cut. That's what everybody else does, by the way. So why aren't people from other communities just buying your stuff because it's that fire? I've been to black restaurants where white people are in there going crazy. I've been to black establishments or black places, and white people in there going crazy, patronizing the place because the food is quality. So if you got quality stuff, anybody will come to your business and give you money. So if that's the case, have high quality stuff, stop trying to cut corners, and then you can actually charge people a nice little price. And then when it comes time to breaking your people off and helping your people out, like the Hispanic community in Miami, and they just down there installing stuff in people's backyard because this guy knows this and he's only charging him that for it. But if I ask him to do the same driveway thing, he's gonna tax my ass. It's the same thing. So that little thing that Nick Cannon said, I just wanted to dispel that. I don't like that talk. I really feel like that needs to be evaluated. There's some talking points in our community that's just, all right, yeah, yep, that's the thing, and keep going. Like, yeah, I don't know who gave us all of these seeds, but there's a lot of fallacies that's in our book of being black in America, and I don't like that one. But to tie it all back in, Sir Jeezy, I blame your you need a publicist. How about that?
Yeah, I didn't take that. Like when I read it, what I took from what he said was I kept it low key, but once I said that I was involved, it started to turn into Freaknik whenever you walked in. That's what I thought he was saying. That's what I thought he was saying. So I felt like he was bringing up the Freaknik thing and the smoking weed upstairs to say once everybody found out that it was me who was involved with this, now all of a sudden people want to turn it into show up, making it like it's Freaknik or they smoking weed upstairs. But here's what I'll say to Jeezy. Mm-hmm. Jeezy, that's kind of on you. And again, I say that, but I'm not blaming him. It's just when you've curated an image for yourself of being Mr. 17.5, Snowman, like when you've done that, that is your, to continue using the word that we've used a couple times already, that's your constituency. Your constituency is going to follow you wherever you go if they know that that's where you are. So if you can sort of project into the future and determine that constituency is going to have a negative impact on any particular business venture that you're involved in, it behooves you to not make it known that you're involved because they're going to follow you. And and really that's kind of what he's been able to do with his music career has become a gift and a curse, because clearly he's carved a niche, he's carved a place for himself in hip hop history. Whether we can talk all day long about skills and whether he's on this top list or whatever. I don't like lists. I've talked about how I don't like lists because they're just completely arbitrary and rooted in subjectivity. But Jeezy nevertheless has a defined place in this music game because of the kind of sound that he proliferated when he came into the game all of those years ago. He, like I said, I believe he invented it for the most part, and he perfected it, and it followed him for his entire career path as a rapper up until he stepped away from actively making music the way that he used to when he was more active with it. So it's been good for you because you've been able to be Jeezy the business. That's what allowed you to become Jeezy the businessman that you are now. But the curse angle of it is that identity is going to follow you. That base is going to follow you. That constituency is going to follow you. It's like Trump with his Make America Great Again people. Like from here on out, it's no matter what he does to try and curtail that, to sort of play more into the center. He's that groundswell of support on that side for him is so deeply entrenched and intertwined with who he is that they're going to follow him no matter what. He'd have to go to extreme lengths to alienate that base. Jeezy at this point would have to go to extreme lengths to alienate the streets. Yeah. So when you say, hey, I'm Jeezy and I'm involved in this, they're going to follow you, bro. And so, yeah, 5-Star Steakhouse in Buckhead, the streets are going to follow you to that place because they know that you're involved. And for better or for worse, that customer base, more likely than not, is going to make something go from 5-star to 4 to 3 until eventually it shuts down. Now, we can get into the weeds sociologically with why that is, but that isn't the purpose of this particular segment. We are just going to comment on the fact that that's what's going to happen. So, like, for Jeezy or the rest of these other rappers who try to diversify their bonds, as Chappelle once said on an episode of Chappelle's show, you got to be careful. It's interesting too because somebody like Styles P, Styles P has his juice bar business, and you don't hear these same sorts of challenges coming out of Styles P. And I think a lot of it has to do with the type of artist that Styles P was juxtaposed to Jeezy. Now, Styles, whether a solo artist or as a member of the Locks, rapped about street stuff, but the tone of it is far different than what Jeezy did. And I think that if you unpack that, therein lies the difference between why Styles P can be public with the fact that he's the proprietor of his juicery thing, and why Jeezy doing the same thing poses different challenges. Hey, bro, like, you did what you did, Jeezy, and it's cool. Like, I got a lot of respect for Jeezy, but from a strategic standpoint, probably in the future, if it's that kind of context, upscale 5-star restaurants located in an affluent neighborhood in America, because of what you curated for yourself coming up, might be best to just keep that low key because you see what can happen.
Yeah, I get it now. I done came full circle on this thing. I don't went from not blaming him to blaming him but no, I get it on this now, because as you were saying that, I was picturing in my head, I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? But I was like, oh wait, his fans came.
That's what it is. That's what he's saying.
No,
that's
I
what
know.
He's saying.
Nah, yeah. I'm a fan. So I'm thinking like, so who cares? Nah, his fans came. And it's like, oh, okay. And it's the, those guys.
Yeah.
And so, there were the me and yous that went because, oh shit, it's Jeezy. We're gonna behave ourselves. But those other guys, I mean, they don't behave themselves anywhere. So yeah, I can see why, because those were the guys smoking in there. Yeah, they do whatever they want everywhere they go. It's the wildest stuff. So I'm not surprised those guys showed up. So if that was turning into a thing like that, I could see that driving down the value and then other types of things. Because I mean, I wouldn't want to be around that. I mean, I don't live that life. And if you're around that stuff long enough, you're gonna get caught up in it, whether you like it or not. So I'm not going there. because they got the shenanigans going. So yeah, I guess he should have just kept that, because yeah, you think street, but we've been to some shows where maybe Jeezy never was in Tallahassee though, was he?
Yeah, we went. I don't know if you were there, but me and D Money, we went to a Jeezy show once in Tallahassee at Taboo before they closed that down.
Man,
I don't think you were there. I think it was just me and him that night.
I
It was cool though. Yeah, it was cool, man. I give Jeezy credit, bro. Like, he performed. He wasn't being a diva. He was out there. The time that he was scheduled to start, it was like 10:30 or whatever, or 11 something. He was there and he did the whole set up until 2 when it let out.
Wow.
He ain't just do 1 or 2 songs and leave. He did the whole set. It was cool.
Okay.
Yeah, Jeezy. Right. I got respect for Jeezy, but there's a give and take with some of the career arcs that we ingratiate ourselves with. And I think that's the biggest lesson in this whole thing, is like, Snowman allowed you to become Jeezy Businessman, but now Jeezy Businessman has to strategically position himself in such a way that the Snowman customer base isn't going to threaten anything that Jeezy the Businessman wants to do.
That's sad, man.
Yeah,
that's sad. And honestly, that's just sad, because I was getting at him for turning his back on the streets, but it's like, hey, bro, the streets is not. Well, I mean, look, you were feeding the streets. Pause. We were feeding the streets this. You created these monsters.
That's what I'm. Yeah.
I'm blaming him again. I don't care. You created those monsters. Those guys, you damn right they shut that shit down. They need to shut down your next shit you try to start on the low on their ass. Because you got a whole bunch of dudes in prison because they were sitting there listening to that trap shit, and a whole bunch of people on some other dumb shit because they was listening to that trap shit. Hey, I was listening to it too, but I came up in a different circumstance. But it was dudes that was coming up in a circumstance where it was accessible, and they got into it, and they were bumping your anthems. So no, they needed to do that. No, I'm cheering that on now. My bad. I came all kinds of ways, man. I was over here, but I'm standing on this one though, because it just dawned on me. I would have thought about this after the whole stream. I'm like, damn it, no. But yeah, nah, hell no, Jeezy. Nice try though. Nice.
Yeah, I think he should just keep his mouth shut, because bro, if whatever you attach your name to, that's what's gonna happen because of what you did. I mean, Jeezy's first album was in what, 2005, and this was strong all the way through all of these albums, through the mid 2000 teens, before he finally started to slow down. That's over a decade of street psychosis, and you're the captain of this ship. So yeah, they're gonna come out in droves, and so. I'm being reasonable in characterizing it as a gift and a curse, but nevertheless, it's a problem that he created through his musical moniker, and the thing that makes him so unique from the rest of these people is he was really able to tap into the soul of some of these people who come from the same places, and they really do. Like he was perhaps the most effective, more so maybe than any other rapper, of making people truly believe that he was doing this stuff while he was rapping about it. And so when you got that kind of cachet, because it's like, this man's really doing this, they're gonna follow you, and they will ruin whatever. Not that his musical career was illegitimate, but you know what I mean. They'll ruin whatever white America corporate type business venture you try to get into. So just be a silent partner. That's what I say. And that's the price you pay. Yeah, maybe you can't be front facing like that, but that's the price you pay when you develop that kind of name for yourself over an extended period of time. So it got you there, but now you can be a silent partner and enjoy the fruits of your labor without making it known. Because if you make it known, hey, they're going to tear that shit up, just like they tear everything else up. So, hey, bro, kind of only have yourself to blame. even though I feel where he's coming from, everybody should have the opportunity to do it. But hey, bro, you kind of made that bed yourself. So, snowman, bitch. That's kind of what you get, bro. For it is what it is.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
what a wild segment.
Oh boy. Good luck on your book, Jeezy, man. I hope you sell plenty of copies, man. Adversity certified or whatever it's called.
Get clean money, bro. Get clean money, bro. I'm all for that.
Oh.